Is this a dream? It can't be true. How could this happen to me? All I could do was lie on the ground, trembling, still feeling his hands all over my body, hurting me over and over again. I tried to shake these thoughts away by thinking of my loving boyfriend, but it didn't help. The nightmare was my reality. The incident happened 2 months ago. My company had sent me and my team out to a province for 3 days to organize an event. It was a really difficult event, and every day my team and I had to work late to finish it on time. On the final day, my coworkers decided to go out to celebrate and invited me to join, but I was so exhausted that all I wanted to do was sleep, so I told them to go ahead without me and I'd head back to the hotel first. However, as I was putting my room key in the door, I noticed that someone was staring at me. His gaze made my skin crawl, and I started to feel really uneasy. So I pretended to call my friend, hoping that he would walk away, and for a moment it looked like he was leaving me alone, so I took my chance and quickly unlocked the door. But as soon as the door opened, I felt a hand grip tightly on my neck and push me into the room. I was paralyzed. I knew I had to get out of the situation, but as soon as I turned to face him, he punched me right in the stomach. I couldn't breathe and quickly fell to the ground. He just kept punching and kicking me until I couldn't fight back anymore. He put his weight all over me and pulled my pants down. When I tried to scream for help, he covered my mouth and told me to shut up. I was frozen with fear. I closed my eyes and tried to pretend that this wasn't happening to me. After he was done, he hit me one more time and laughed as he left me on the floor. I couldn't move. I didn't want it to be real. I tried to wash him off my body, and even though I scrubbed as hard as I could, I still felt his hands wrapped around me. How was I supposed to get through this? My body hurt all over, and when I tried to lay down, it felt like I had 1,000 knives in my stomach. I don't know how long I was on the floor for, until my coworker found me covered in blood. She came rushing over, and I tried to get the words out, but all I could do was cry. She immediately hugged me and called an ambulance. When I got to the hospital, the doctor said that I had suffered injuries from my assault. My ribs were broken, and I had bleeding in my brain. He insisted that I also do testing for any sexually transmitted diseases. After I was finished, my friend took me to do a police report. It was so hard to say what had happened out loud, but I tried my best to get everything out without breaking down. However, the hardest part of it all was having to face my boyfriend. I was so afraid that he would blame me for what happened, but as soon as I told him, he told me it wasn't my fault and that he wouldn't leave my side. I was so thankful to have him with me. The events following after were so hard. I didn't know how to go on living a normal life. Every time someone came near me, I would freak out and think it was that man coming to grab me. I also stopped being able to sleep, as every time I closed my eyes, my assault would replay over and over again. I hated going to work because everyone knew what had happened, and even though my colleagues sympathized with me, I could hear them whispering, talking about me. It made me feel even worse. In the end, it became too much. I couldn't face my coworkers knowing what had happened to me, and I decided to leave my job. I needed to get away from everything and decided to go stay with my parents. The police later called and said that they had filed an arrest for my attacker and asked me to come in to redo my testimony. It was so hard to go over the events because it felt like I was being assaulted over and over again. But even though it was tough, I knew that I had to be as detailed as possible. However, the difficult part of it all was being questioned on why I didn't fight back hard enough. It made me feel like it was my fault that it happened, and that in some ways, I had asked for it. The police still hadn't caught my attacker, but I tried to move on and forget about what had happened, but my life only got harder. I started to get sick in the morning, and then my period came late, so I took a pregnancy test. It came back as positive. I had gotten pregnant from the assault. I didn't know what to do. This baby was a reminder of the man that took away my consent. For a while, I hated my life and my body. But as time went on, I started to love the baby growing inside me, and I knew I couldn't punish him for what that man did to me. I couldn't hate my baby because, in the end, him and I were both victims, and in some ways, he was a blessing. However, many people around me were shocked by my decision. They asked how I could love such a thing that came from that monster. But I knew that if I gave my baby up for adoption, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Because of my assault, there were 3 lives that were affected. Mine, my boyfriend's, and the innocent life growing in my stomach. My boyfriend couldn't understand why I wanted to keep the baby, and this decision caused a lot of hurt in our relationship. We started to fight all the time. My boyfriend felt so guilty for what had happened to me and hated my decision to go through with the pregnancy. I felt paranoid all the time, and whenever my boyfriend tried to become intimate, I would freak out and push him away. I tried to get better, but every time I closed my eyes, that man would be there, laughing at me. It got so bad that in the end, we decided to break up. It was the hardest decision of my life, but I knew it was for the best. Even though it was so hard to go through the pregnancy, my baby deserves to get the best life as he possibly can. No one will know the truth of how he was conceived, and just think that he came from a past relationship. I decided to hide his past so that no one would look and treat my son differently. At first, I was worried that I would see my attacker's face when I saw my son, but as soon as I saw him, I could only see how beautiful he was. I knew in that moment that I had made the right decision, and for the first time since the incident, I finally felt happy. A year later, the police contacted me and said that my attacker had died. The police went on to tell me that he had also hurt 2 other women, ruining their lives in the process. And because of his actions, he was murdered by a relative of one of the victims. I felt so sad for the women that had gone through what I did, as well as angry that he got off so easily. But in the end, I'm happy that he will no longer be able to hurt anyone else again.